Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Can I be brutally honest starting something off here? Why do you laugh? What was funny about that?
I don't know what it's going to be.
Do you think that is an anxiety reaction for you? What's happening inside of me? What's he going to do?
No, it caught me off guard, but I generally am much more of a laugher in the beginning of our episodes because almost everything you start with catches me off guard. And I think, it's going to go somewhere good.
I don't know that this is going to go somewhere good. I'm just going to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, you might want to hit fast forward if you're like watching on YouTube.
Okay.
Or not. Hold on. Who knows? This is going to blow your mind.
A lot of buildup.
Yeah. I restarted celery juicing this morning. Yeah.
Oh.
Why does that matter? For those of you
who don't know what that means.
No, let me fill them in on it, if I may. So celery juicing historically has just caused me to, I don't know, turn into a fire hose out of my rear end. and then your body acclimates to it after about a week of doing that. But you're not really in control of your bowels. You're just like, hey, I'm hanging out. And like, when
it comes.
Yeah. You're running, screaming like there's a fire happening and you're just trying to get to a toilet. So what I'm trying to preface this whole thing with is I don't know what could happen to me this morning. I may stop midway into this whole thing and take off running. And if so,
we'll edit in a little clock that goes do 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 do.
But yeah, that's a fun little hobby I have.
A hobby. That's something that you have learned to do, like when you have skin issues or autoimmune or stomach issues coming up.
Yeah. It's something I learned from the medical medium. Great guy. Yeah, really good guy. Good tips. So did that for a couple of years. Anyways, that's not what this episode's about. This episode is about something way better than my bowels.
Let's hope.
Last episode, we had a conversation about dysregulation. And if you haven't watched that, you should really go back and watch that dysregulation conversation because it was about Abby and I not only talking about the dysregulation inside of ourselves and what that looks like inside the human body, but it was also a conversation where there was a lot of validation and attunement where we were taking ownership for the way that we played a role in really causing a breakdown inside of the nervous system of the relationship. So all relationships have their own nervous systems. There's balance, emotional balance. And we really did damage to that through our own personal inability to manage our own nervous systems.
Yeah. It's something that I think could be very helpful for people to start to look at. Instead of our relationship is me and you, and it's me versus you, often to look at our relationship has a third entity. It's the nervous system of the relationship. And am I contributing safety to that nervous system? Am I contributing regulation to that nervous system? Peace, kindness, gentleness, patience. Am I contributing that? Or am I bringing my anger, my intensity, my frustration? And I think we both generally believed that the other person shouldn't be affected by our emotions. Like I was like, I should be able to be in a horrible mood all day and have that not affect you.
You should not be impacted by my crappy emotions.
Yes.
Even if I'm not saying anything.
Yes. And for years, that was something that we had in fights is you'd be like, I haven't said anything wrong, but I could feel you stewing over there. And I would be like, it's not as much the words you're saying. And this is listen, when we're talking about this, this is not to control people's moods. Like we haven't
Right.
gotten to the place where it's like, you're not allowed to feel feelings.
Yeah. Understanding that there is an impact from the energy that is building up inside of us as individuals is just very healthy and
Yes.
helpful to the dynamics of any connection. Knowing like, I'm bringing something to the table. Yeah, I am like super flippin' moody inside. I have a lot of anger. I feel like a porcupine internally. I may not be expressing it outwardly, but the room is feeling it. So if people are on edge, there's a reason for it. It takes a lot of personal ownership. It takes a lot of personal shame resilience to be able to actually acknowledge I create an impact inside of this relational connection.
And one of the things that's most important for me in this is that we don't believe one person creates the impact. We believe that both people, and that's why we're talking about the nervous system as a central relationship. So it's not just, oh, my wife is always moody and she creates chaos in our nervous system.
Or my husband's always grumpy and he creates chaos in the nervous system.
Yes, because
Whatever.
we all are contributing to it.
So we have to understand it's a collaborative effort when it comes to the well-being of a relational nervous system. Like the word is collaborative, and we are co-creating. And these are words that should be really intertwined into your vocabulary when you think about relational dynamics. Because if it's not, then you play the villain victim. But once you utilize words like collaboration and co-creation, and that's like etched inside of your vocabulary regarding a relationship, then all of a sudden the victim villain thing falls away. It starts disappearing much more.
Yeah, because even like I remember you were very dysregulated just as a human when I met you. I was also, but you had so much anxiety about things. And so there was a whole dance we were doing without any language. I would feel your anxiety raising, and that would raise my anxiety because I would know at any given point that could come out short at me, or that could come out frustrated at me, or that could come out angry with me. And so I would feel you stewing, and then I would start to build my anxiety, and then we both would have anxiety that was playing off of each other's system and off of what was happening.
It's like I like the language, an unspoken bad dance that is volcanic in nature, waiting for an eruption.
Yeah. And this is where a lot of people are like, but I do all of the right things. I say all of the right things. Yeah, you can say the right things while you are having a tornado inside, and the other person is still probably going to have anxiety.
I actually had a conversation with someone the other day talking about their marriage relationship. And they've done a lot of proactive work about communicating their inner world with their partner, and their partner isn't always so receptive, right? And I started having a conversation about the energy. And I said, let's talk about what are probably some of your feelings that are happening as you're communicating this. Because it sounds like, they'll even say like verbatim, I said ... I'm like, that's all really good language. They're being very deliberate. And I was like, do you think your energy when you say it has these elements of peace, kindness, thoughtfulness inside of it? Like, do you feel like you're for the person when you're having this conversation? They're like, oh no, hell no.
No, I am like at war. I am braced. I am ready to stab you if you stab me first.
And I was like, so you've never necessarily brought this truth to the table with, say, the energy of this kindness and this patience, and no, no, don't think that's ever happened.
Yep.
And I was like, okay. So even though your tone felt like it matched what was right, and your facial expressions.
And your words said the right words.
And they're like, no, totally. Internally, I was totally disrupted. And it was like a tornado inside of me. And I was like, yeah. So do you think that could be impacting the relational experience of how they receive it? And they're like, yeah, that's really good.
Well, and I don't want this to make people feel like it's hopeless, because if I heard this, I would be like, how am I supposed to feel positive feelings and say the good right things all together? That would
tell you that you're cutting me.
I would have like died if that was what I thought the goal was. I think what we're trying to do is, for us, it's been a lot of awareness and being able to narrate. So for me, sometimes I might say, hey, I love you. I hear that my behavior is affecting you. I'm having a lot of anxiety right now. And so I really care about what's going on for you, but you might be feeling my anxiety.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is not suppression. Like I need to suppress all my emotions and shove them to the side whenever I have a conversation with you, because you'll actually feel that.
Yeah.
It's the ability to let someone in on what is going on internally so they can understand the experience that they're having.
Yeah. And, you're talking about the narration aspect and articulating that. It might even be things like, oh, I can tell I'm working through emotions of disappointment right now as I'm having this conversation. I'm trying to manage that really well. I can tell that there is levels of frustration that are inside of me, and I want to do this well, and I want to share these things with you, and I want to do this healthfully.
Yes.
Things like that. And again, like you said, when you're highlighting, there's a reality that this is going on, and this is what I want to communicate, and this is what my hopes are for this. It helps somebody go, all right, at least we're not like wondering what the unspoken stuff is. And I know what your goals or your intentions are, and I at least can be a little bit more present with this dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a huge part of it is our goal is to be regulated, and then to be regulated together.
Yeah.
And so when we see that my goal is not to prove that your behavior is right or wrong, or that my behavior is right or wrong, our goal is to actually be in a regulated place. And I like to think of regulation as a place where my emotions and my logic are coexisting as friends. So like I can have feelings, but my logic is still, I'm still driving my car. My feelings aren't driving my car. So there's this beautiful place where our executive function and our emotional experiences, when they live together, it's a very balanced situation. So let's say we're in a conversation, even you just saying like, oh, I can tell I feel disappointed and whatever. I could feel anxiety. We're not even talking about anything about me. But so the idea is like, I noticed, oh, I felt a little bit of anxiety, but I still had my logical brain online. I could be like, oh, I felt a body sensation come up. That's often when I want to get defensive, and there's nothing actually happening here. So my logic is on, my executive function is on, even though I felt a feeling. And oftentimes in conflict, that's what I'm aiming for, is that regulated place where I am slowing down. This is one of the cruelest things on the planet to somebody who has a personality like mine, that regulation is a slower pace, because I have ADHD. So I want to go fast. It's hard for my brain to slow down. I like to talk fast. I like to argue fast. I like to lawyer fast.
Gosh, that just provoked so much anxiety inside of me and reminded me of our entire marriage.
And so we wanted to talk about ways that our dysregulation has affected our marriage, but ways that we've learned to regulate.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that I've learned to regulate that has impacted the nervous system culture of our relationship is slowing down.
Yeah.
And there's some practical ways that I do it.
That has saved my soul.
So I've learned that when I talk too fast or too long, Justin gets dysregulated. So for me, I'm not doing this for Justin. I'm not trying to placate him. I'm not abandoning me to make him happy. What I'm doing is I'm thinking, I want us both to be regulated. So how can I contribute regulation?
Yeah.
So my thought would be, oh, I should slow down how I'm talking. Oh, I've been talking for a few minutes. I should stop talking and give him room to respond. Now, this is the real big one. Oh, I should give him plenty of time to respond. Because in the past, I wanted you to respond fast, instantly, because the pace of fight and flight is fast.
Yeah.
And it feels safer to me than having to be present and feel. And so I had to learn how to regulate enough to slow the pace of a conversation down. And what that does is that gives us time to actually have, when I'm talking about being regulated, having our emotions online and our brain online, I want to be able to mix them together. When I'm doing fast, I'm reacting out of my emotion side. Even if it's logic, it's the reaction side of me, not the I'm in balance inside.
For those of you who are just joining us, we've been in the emotional health field for 15 years now. We've had over 4,000 clients and we've had over 10,000 people take our courses. And the cool thing is that in that whole process, we've actually had thousands of people tell us that taking our courses has radically transformed their lives, their relationships. And the reality is it's not just because of the information, it's because of the community aspect. And that's what's so cool and unique about Reclaiming You. It's 14 weeks of live community experience that you're going to have when you join us for that. So come join us. Yeah, I'm so thankful that you've begun the process in the last little while of slowing things down. It did spiral me into heightened amounts of anxiety, in which that eventually built into the back and forth bad dance where we had explosions. And not saying you initiated only that and then I just responded, but it played a role when that did happen of like, no, I actually need it slowed down. And now you're stirring up my nervous system and it's growing in intensity. One of the things that we were talking about is the relationship has a nervous system. And you said, hey, I'm not just trying to placate Justin and abandon myself and placate him. But if we both have a common goal in mind.
Yes.
Which is we want this thing to work out.
we want conflict to be a safe environment for both of us.
Yeah. And we want to walk away feeling closer to each other instead of further apart, you know, and we don't want to feel left broken and destitute on the other side of this. So the thought is, I have something I selfishly want. And Johnny talked about this in another episode, Duffield, about having like selfish desire within the relationship in a good way. Like, I selfishly want this marriage to go well, the relationship to work well, because it's good for my being if things are working out. And that doesn't mean I get there by abandoning myself. It's that we are sitting there looking at, all right, how do I contribute to the well-being of the nervous system? How do I contribute to the well-being of this relationship specifically, where we are both experiencing a win-win inside of an experience?
Yes.
So that we both feel loved, seen, known, heard, understood. And
Well, and that's what I think about when I think about why I slowed down. It wasn't to make you happy. It was because that's good for my nervous system.
Right.
And it's good for your nervous system.
Totally.
So I'm looking at this thing that I'm wanting us to be regulated. So I need to contribute. Me forcing myself to slow down helps me stay more regulated. And then me forcing myself to slow down helps you stay more regulated, which is a really great gift to both of us.
And speaking of nervous systems, I just got to throw this story out there really quick. It's just hysterical to me. My ADD won't let it go. So I'm on the phone with my parents the other day, totally about to throw my dad under the bus. I'm sure he'll enjoy this. But we're on the phone. They're driving back from like Montana down to California. And we're having a good talk. And all of a sudden, I hear, bah! Just big, big horn. And I was like, what is happening? And then I hear him, and my mom's like, Bob, Bob, what's happening, Bob? And she almost ran us off the road for a second time. And then my mom just starts laughing because she's like, this is out of control. And he's apparently got a trailer behind him on the truck, and he's driving like over 88 miles an hour or 90 miles an hour, trying to catch up to her. And I'm like, what are you going to do? Are you going to murder her? Like, what is the point of this? Are you going to give her a bad face? Is the middle finger enough to justify this situation? Like, what is happening? And I can just hear him grumping in the background. My mom is laughing because it's so absurd what's going on. And I was like, Dad, I understand that you have a lot of anxiety in your body right now, but you're not going to work it out by driving faster and screaming more at this lady.
Well, that's a great example because his body went into fight or flight so fast.
No,
He's
hold on a
probably
second.
not
Hold
even
on.
choosing it.
Totally. I need to add this. He's like, it's not anxiety. I'm angry at her. I said, Dad, that's what anxiety does. You got anxiety and you're fighting. It shocked the shit out of you going almost off the road. But go ahead.
Well, I didn't know the anxiety was under anger for me.
Correct.
Most of the time. And I used to talk about that with you, and I didn't feel like you knew that your anger was anxiety.
No,
for
I
yours.
didn't. No.
It's common. It's exactly what you described is what happens in so many fights. Something happens that gets our self-protection mechanism, and we immediately go into action. And our body is built to immediately put us into action to get us out of the fear.
Yeah.
And that happens in relationships. If you say one wrong thing that I think is like gaslighting me, or I think is denying my experience, my body instantly is like, okay, we got to fight for this. And so regulating for me, a lot of it has been learning to notice that initial rush and
it's
then
going through the body.
Do something with it besides react from it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to notice the initial rush until I started getting connected to my body.
Yeah, I think that just let me add this to that there too. Like that is such a vital part of the conversation. There's no way that we have the capacity to regulate our body if we're disconnected from our body. I spent years dissociated from my body. It wasn't a safe place to be for me. And I think that as people are listening, I wanted to add this for you. Like, this might not make sense to you, and it might be because you're disconnected from your body. There's grace for you to go on the journey to connect into your body. And there's probably a lot of difficult things that you may have to face in doing that. But it's a game changer if you can connect into your body.
For me, connecting to my body didn't create difficulty. I was terrified of it because I thought it was going to be horrible. But you can actually learn how to connect to your nervous system in a really safe way where you don't have to all of a sudden refill all of your trauma. And that's why we're doing our course in January, Reclaiming You. It's about learning how to heal your nervous system and build emotional resilience, the ability to actually have a healthy relationship with your nervous system and your emotions. We're going to teach how to do it because this changed our marriage. It changed my life. I spent years in trauma, and it wasn't until I learned how to work with my body. I did all of the therapy. I did all of the logic. I did all of the EMDR, I did all this stuff, but it wasn't until I got my body involved in the healing process that I was actually able to let go of the trapped emotions. And so much of it came from connecting to my nervous system and learning how to become a safe place for my nervous system. I didn't learn to connect to my body through having to go through trauma. I actually learned how to connect to my body through adding safety into my world and then learning how to feel good in my body again. So, but as I learned to connect to my nervous system, I'm able to recognize when a rush hits, either a rush of defensiveness or a rush of anxiety or a rush of blame or a rush. And I'm able to recognize, oh, right now is when I want to yell at you, or right now is when I want to snap, or right now is when I want to walk away angry, or right now. And now that I've been on this journey for a few years, I can recognize I'm having a body sensation that is uncomfortable, and it's making me want to react to get out of that body sensation. And that was really transformative when I recognized that it wasn't your behavior that was causing me to react. It was my body reaction to the threat that made it so unsafe for me. And what that meant is I could walk away and go take care of my body reaction to threat and get to safety so that then I could have a different response to you than just fighting back. And that's what happens is people get in dysregulated cycles. One partner gets dysregulated, the other person gets dysregulated, the other person gets dysregulated, the other person gets dysregulated, and then they're just spiraling.
And now you're just living in separate homes.
Totally.
In order to feel okay. And that's a lot of times this conversation around the nervous system, like I'll hear partners be like, I'm just so relieved to be away from my spouse for a few days.
Totally.
And I'm like, yeah, you probably are, because the central nervous system of that relationship is blown to pieces. And so there's a sense of anxiety attached to it and overwhelm and it's really shaky and out of balance, and you're each tipping each other's nervous system over the edge because you haven't settled back into safety inside of your bodies
Yes.
in the presence of one another. You're consistently still in threat inside of your body, even if you're saying and doing all the right things with one another.
Well, and this is, again, we went into a season years ago of doing marriage counseling. And honestly, we tried marriage counseling all throughout our marriage, on and off. And I'm thankful for it. I don't want to say, like, there was things that were beneficial and helpful. It didn't actually change any of our cycles until we went on separate journeys of learning how to regulate. That is the thing I think that changed our marriage the most. What do you think?
I think it played a vital role. Yeah. I don't know that it was the only thing. And I don't think it was completely the foundation necessarily. I'm not sure what I think or feel about it fully, but I do think it played a vital role in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, on my side, I never felt like marriage counseling ended our cycles. I felt like they maybe duct taped us to have a little bit more of a tool. And I think every tool is valuable. So I'm glad that we learned. But for me, most of the things that we cycled in, we kept cycling in until we learned that we need to manage our own nervous systems, that we both need to get regulated ourselves. And that felt powerful for us to actually, instead of, for a long time, we were just trying to get the other person to change.
Yeah.
And then when we went separately, how do we learn to live regulated? Then we were bringing something together that was more about how do I manage me in this than how do I control you. And I was going to say that's one of the things that I see really contributed to our dysregulation cycles was I felt like so our nervous system is based on, do I feel safe or do I feel threatened? And there was a lot of behaviors where I felt threatened. And so what I wanted to do is fix you or control you or blame you or convince you not to do the things that were threatening so that I could feel safe.
Yeah.
And that didn't work. It didn't make you more safe for me. It didn't even help me be more heard about it. So when I went and had to learn how do I get to safety for my nervous system, instead of managing you, how do I manage me? And that was a lot of work to actually manage me and connect to safety. And I had to connect to safety outside of us sometimes, like there would be times where we'd get into a fight and I would go call a friend that I felt safe with to help my nervous system come back online into safety, to help me get reconnected to love and compassion and connection. And there's times I'd have to walk away and go do things that felt safe for my body so that my body could feel safe, and then be able to come back in a more regulated way so that I could contribute that. But the focus of our fights went from how do I control you to be regulated to how do I control me to stay regulated. And I think that's something that we both switched.
We shared earlier about reclaiming you. This next year, we're also kicking off an online membership called The Connection Cure. With The Connection Cure, you can get access to all of our courses and our online resources for one low price. Now, if you jump into Reclaiming You, you're going to get early access to The Connection Cure free with your purchase of Reclaiming You.
Yeah, so you'll get the Compassion Project, the Father Series, Living Fully Alive, Pathway to Freedom, and Relationship Glue, along with the thing I'm most excited about, our Regulation Library, which has over 70 guided regulation exercises for you to be able to start to retrain your nervous system to feel peace and connected to yourself.
Come join us January 11th, 2025 for Reclaiming You and get on board for
with
the Connection
bonus,
Cure. Yeah.
You get a bonus in the Connection Cure for as long as you're doing it.
And there was a collective effort for both of us happening. I think that, someone might listen to this and be like, well, what if your partner's not doing anything at all about it? And I'm like, yeah, that is hard when there's not someone who is wanting to collaborate and move in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I only have power over me. And how do I foster my own personal well-being? And how do I take ownership over the experience I'm having in this relationship? Because if at the end of the day, I require Abby to change for me to be okay, I'm going to feel really powerless, and I'm going to continue to feel trapped inside of my own soul, out of control, overwhelmed. I'm not going to be able to actually touch on peace. And so I think that there is that aspect of, all I know is that I have to go manage me. And that's something that for me, we both move that direction. However, I don't know. For me, I don't know that I knew whether or not you were moving that direction.
Yeah.
It wasn't clear to me what you were doing. I did hit a road though, where even in my conversations with my counselors, it was pretty consistently, I don't know if she's ever going to change. I don't like my experience of her in a lot of ways, but I can't change her. How can I experience this journey differently? Like, whether or not we stay together and she's gone, I'm still going to have my own emotions inside of me that I have to figure out how to manage, how I have to figure out how to have peace inside of me. Like, I can sit here and blame this relationship and her portion of the role that she's playing in this, or I can just say, like, I just know that I want to figure out how to come alive in the midst of this. I know that I want to be someone who is marked by a settledness inside of his soul and a peace, and that he is an expression of love, irregardless of the external behavior that he's experiencing. So for me, that was how I settled into this, and that became a focus for me. Yeah. And that gave me, just in and of itself, a sense of relief inside of my body of like, I can do something about me.
I have power.
I have power, and I am going to find a solution. She is not my solution.
Well, yeah, because if you're waiting for me to change, you're powerless to me.
Yeah.
And that feels so out of control, and that feels really hopeless. If you're like, I can't have a better life until someone outside of my control chooses something, then you're going to always resent and always be angry and always be frustrated.
Yeah.
I think one of the most interesting things is in nervous systems, people naturally mirror each other. So the more regulated you are, the more natural it would be for the people around you to regulate. Just because that's the nature of co-regulation. When we are close to each other, we can regulate with each other. So dysregulation can pull both people into dysregulation, but regulation can pull both people into being regulated. So when you're calm and connected to yourself and not in fight or flight or freeze, and you're present, then, and you're responding from like how you want to respond with love, I often can respond back that way.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And I think this has been one of the hardest pain points in our marriage is when one person is intense, the other person responds intensely back to tell them they're intense. So if you're talking and it's feeling intense, I'll be like, quit being intense. And then you'll be like, you're being intense, like, because it's so natural to mirror the behavior that we're experiencing.
Yeah.
And so for us to have to start to look at, how do I not mirror when my partner's in dysregulation? How do I actually stay calm and regulated? So I thought it'd be good for us to talk through some of the ways that we actually do that.
Yeah. Before we do that, is there anything from the last episode about ownership with regulation that you had on your list, or do you feel completed with that?
One of them that I had is that focusing more on changing you to manage my threats than managing me, like, and a great way to explain that is I was more aware of what you were doing than what I was feeling in a conflict. So instead of being like, now I'm measuring, where is my anxiety? How big is it? Am I about to explode? what do I need to do before I get to that explosion point? So a lot more of my attention in conflict or just everyday life is how am I doing? What's my thermometer? In the past, I would be managing your behavior. I would be like, okay, he's starting to get feisty. Okay, he's starting to call names, or he's getting accusatory, or I was so focused on everything you were doing wrong and aware of it that I was not paying attention. So I didn't know when I would hit explosion point. I didn't know when I would now be dysregulated back. I now am just reacting. I was not paying attention to my internal world at all. So I wasn't able to manage my internal world at all. So now when we're in a fight, instead of hypervigilance about every single thing you're doing, I'm trying to pay more attention to how long can I handle this? Is there something that I can ask for? Oh, my anxiety is raising. Is there something I can ask for that could help bring us back down before we get to a point that feels intense? So now I might be like, okay, my anxiety is raising. I think the tone of voice that he's talking in is actually feeling a little bit overwhelming to me. So I might say, hey, can I pause you? I really want to hear what you have to say, but I can tell the tone feels like we're moving towards intensity, and that feels a little overwhelming for my nervous system, or I'm feeling anxiety from that. And so then what I did is now at like a 4, I'm noticing my anxiety at a 4 instead of at the 10 when I react back about something. And because I'm paying attention to regulating me, not managing you. And that has really impacted, I think, my ability to be present, and what that does is that keeps my executive function, the logic part of my brain, and my feelings, it keeps them in balance because I'm watching my feelings grow and I'm still having logic to be able to think through what's happening with my feelings. And then I'm being able to still have the ability to choose. That's another way that I say I'm regulated if I'm still choosing, not my emotions choosing for me.
Yeah, that's good. I know, excuse me. I know that on my end, another aspect where I got really dysregulated is my relationship with judgment. So when we have judgment, we start telling ourselves a story about someone else. And that judgment may have came in the form of, I've decided in my head what your purpose is, why you're doing what you're doing.
Yep.
Like I've started assigning
your intention.
I've been started assigning your intention to something that was going on inside of it, which would then begin to cause an anxiety going up inside of me. I wasn't checking in to say like, hey, what's your heart on this? I want to better understand. I was making flash judgments about behaviors. And then from that point forward, I was beginning to armor up inside. So that dysregulation starts taking place. I'm getting, and it could be in the moment of a conversation. It could be like a passing moment where you and I have an interaction where I create a judgment, and then I go marinate on my judgment for the afternoon.
Totally.
And in that marination,
you're building more frustration.
Correct. Anger and frustration builds. I have a dysregulated energy when I come back, maybe around dinner, over the issue. You're feeling some sense of unsafety inside of it. And now, and I've done nothing. And I'm like, man, she just got nuts for nothing. It goes to prove.
See? My judgments about her are accurate.
Because I did nothing when I came back in here wrong. All I'm doing is
I am innocent.
I'm innocent. I'm making a sandwich, but you're going, I don't feel safe. I feel your energy. And now you're reacting. And I'm not putting myself as part of this equation, starting all the way back where I started in judgment. And in engaging the judgment, it would cause me to not have compassion and empathy. And compassion and empathy are actually regulated responses.
Yeah. Right? You typically know if you're regulated, if you can have compassion and curiosity.
Yeah. And so when I'm not having that there,
then you know you're not regulated.
And I'm perpetuating the dysregulation. So that was a way that I brought dysregulation into the relationship.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That's very kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and it took us years to learn I would say this concept of main character energy. And I think this is so common in marriages and in life in general. I'm the main character in my story. And I'm always looking at how people are treating me and impacting me and responding to me. And it's taken me a long time to start to be like, what did I contribute that was impacting how they're responding to me? So like if I walk into the room and you're edgy, main character energy is like, they're edgy because of their own issues entirely. It has nothing to do with me. Instead of like main character, letting go of that main character energy could be like, what is going on in this dynamic? And is there something I contributed? And often when I start to look at how are they seeing this? How is Justin seeing this? Oh, he's seeing that I stormed off earlier and I just came back. And he doesn't know if I'm regulated or not. And he doesn't know if I'm about to yell or not. And so he's actually really braced. But main character energy is like, why are you being weird? I went and dealt with everything. I'm fine. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that main character energy, which we all get into, is a very self-absorbed and unhealthy, selfish type of thing, because it doesn't have the broader consideration of the entire story that everyone is a main character. Everyone has their own experience that's happening.
Well, and I started being like, oh, Justin's the main character in his story, and he's seen this completely different.
Yeah.
And everyone is the main character in their own story. And so how do we collaborate with people to actually have a more full version of reality?
Yeah.
And not allow ourselves to be gaslit. I'm not allowing you to define my reality or me. I'm just saying, like, how can I see the broader picture?
Yeah. When two people actually care about the dynamics of a connected relationship, they will want to get all the pieces. Like really, when I really care, I'm like, I want to know your story as much as I want you to know my story. And I want to have a full picture.
Yeah.
That we can both like have some agreement around.
And a lot of times the stories are very different.
Yeah. That's why it's like torturous for anyone who does marriage counseling, because you sit down and you're so convinced if you spend any extensive amount of time with one person that this is how the relationship is. And then you bring someone else in, the other partner, and you're like, oh my God. The person I've been sitting with is a psychopath for the last 6 months.
Yeah, it's wildly different, the two stories that we have.
Yeah.
It's very
totally.
true.
Yeah.
I was thinking about some of the ways that I've worked on contributing regulation. I thought we could both share ways that we've worked on contributing regulation.
Bringing regulation to it, yeah.
One of them is walking away. And so much of this goes back on, I have created a much more healthy relationship with my nervous system and my emotions. So I am much more kind, compassionate, and in tune with myself. So as I'm recognizing me get dysregulated, I can notice when I need to walk away before I hit explosion.
Yeah.
Now, I can't always do it, but I'm much better than I used to be. There's much more often. And the walk away is, I think, one of the most powerful parts of a regulated relationship.
Yeah.
And the goal would be to be kind in it. Like, hey, I can tell I'm getting dysregulated.
So not a storm
I need
off.
to walk away. I'm not trying to punish. I'm not trying to stonewall you, but I am recognizing my emotion experience on the inside is getting so loud that if I don't walk away, it'll create an outburst for you.
Yeah. That's good. Did you want me to share my side?
Yeah.
Of thoughts?
Okay.
I was looking at some notes here. One of the things that for me that I had to connect to was a flood of emotions in my own body. And recognize that was happening.
See, I didn't even know my body was having emotions for most of our marriage.
Yeah.
I thought I was just angry or you were stupid. I didn't know.
Was somebody dissociated?
I had no idea that I had feelings. I had a clip go viral about how my counselor called me out and she was like, I don't actually think you know how to feel your feelings in your body. I don't even think you know what those feelings feel like. And I didn't. And so this thing that you're talking about is actually one of the best things I've ever done for my life, is actually learn how to be inside my my nervous system and connected to it.
Yeah.
Not my nervous system's inside me, but like connected to it is what I mean.
Gotcha. So anyways, the flood inside of me, I had to begin to recognize like I'm getting flooded. How do I bring that down? Because that flood looked like overwhelm. That flood looked like a feeling of powerlessness. That flood looked like an intense amount of anxiety. That flood looked like anger. So those were
And
key.
freeze.
And freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so as whatever part of that swirl would start hitting me, for me, I would begin to internally narrate. All right, I know you're really scared right now. I know you feel really out of control right now. I would actually acknowledge whatever aspect of that flood, what it was, to myself. So I'd acknowledge it internally. Then I would have an internal conversation of like, I will take care of you. Do you need me to walk away from this moment and breathe? If not, I'm willing to take care of you later and get whatever need met that's needed. Like I would have that healthy personal exchange with myself, finding out
like an inner dialogue.
It's an inner dialogue as we're having an exchange, and I'm like, how am I going to take care of myself? And so I got really good. You talked about the walk away, and that was something that I've progressively gotten better at in my own world of saying like, hey, can we pause this? I need to go take a break.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to this. And that was first and foremost for my own well-being. I want to love well, and I want to take, and that comes from taking care of myself well. But for me, I had to realize that I needed that.
Yeah.
For years, I said, oh, I don't need that. I don't need those things. I shouldn't need those things. I shouldn't have to do that. And I think that this is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't take care of themselves well, is because they believe the lie, I shouldn't have to need that, or I shouldn't want that.
Yeah.
That there's something wrong with me for wanting that. And I'm like, no, this is you just being healthy.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things you're talking about is even that inner dialogue that you're having with yourself, that is connecting your nervous system to safety. It's saying, I care about you. I see what's going on inside of you. I'm attuned with you. Scientifically, self-compassion, when we experience self-compassion, it's similar to experiencing attunement. And that is how our brain needs attunement to get through the pain process. So even you just being aware of yourself and having a conversation that's kind and gentle towards yourself. It's not, why can't you stay regulated? What's wrong with you? Why are you having huge emotions right now? It's actually that, okay, I see that anxiety is building. I see that you're starting to feel overwhelmed in this conversation. That's having the ability to have your logic brain still involved with your emotions. They're in balance, and it enables you to experience self-compassion, self-attunement, and that signals to your nervous system, there's safety here. Yeah. Somebody is looking out for me. And just that thing can start to decrease your level of threat, because when our nervous system is always looking between, is this safe or is this a threat? Is it safe or is it a threat? And so when you start to take care of your internal world in the middle of a conversation with me, it is a way to connect to safety, even though you're in a hard situation.
Yeah. And I had made mention of the inner dialogue, and management of my inner dialogue wasn't just towards myself. One of the ways that I helped in bringing regulation into the relationship was managing my inner dialogue about you.
Yeah, because what you say in your head about me either takes your nervous system more into threat or more into safety. Yep.
So oftentimes I would say, and it would make sense. I would say things like, she's not safe. She's just going to turn this against you. And those are self-protective statements, because we've all experienced times where somebody wasn't safe and we just kept moving forward towards them, and we gave them more information, and they did weaponize it against us. And so we have very logical reasons and reasonable reasons for why we do that. However, it wasn't benefiting my ability to stay regulated.
Yeah.
So I actually would attempt to paint a picture of you with my inner dialogue that was like, the truth is that she loves you. and she is for you, and she wants to work this out well too. She wants to get to a place of peace. She wants to get to resolve. She is feeling scared herself potentially here.
Yeah, I've seen that happen in your self-talk a lot because it's manifested externally of like, oh, you must be feeling really scared.
Yeah.
Oh, you must be feeling a lot of anxiety. Instead of the accusation it used to be or the blame, it is now, oh, you must be feeling scared, which is that's a much less threatening narration of me than she's the worst.
Yeah. So when I could narrate potentially the experience that you might be having beyond my perceived accusations, right, of what you're doing, when I get down to humanizing you and saying, oh, this must be going on inside of her, I could respond outwardly. I didn't just regulate myself, but I helped you even get to a place of healthy regulation by making a statement like, hey, I bet you're feeling pretty scared right now, or overwhelmed, or you're probably feeling like abandonment inside of yourself. I can imagine, you know, and that was an invitation for vulnerability and connection when I did that.
Yes.
And it was an invitation for the nervous system to
it instantly deflated my anxiety because now I have somebody who's not against me, coming at me, trying to hurt me or trying to protect themselves from me. It's somebody who's like seeing that there is something good inside that's vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that you've contributed a lot that has brought a lot of regulation. I think that's really good.
I want to add another one if that's fine, if I continue on. Acceptance versus resistance has been a major shift in the experience of how we're regulating. So for me, oftentimes when something began to go off the rails, that maybe there was a problem, whatever it happened to be, I was in resistance energy. I was like, no, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to escalate further. We have places to go, things to do. We have to stop this at all costs. There was a resistance to the fact that there was some sort of problem that was showing up on our map. And in my avoidance of that or resistance of that, my anxiety got worse and worse. And then all of a sudden, I remember we'd have conversations where you'd be like, it wasn't so fun the way you communicated it, but you'd be like, you just made this worse. If you would have just like faced this from the beginning, we're 4 hours into this thing and it didn't have to be like this.
Yes. If you would have just
I was like, oh, okay, blame it all on me. But the concept in truth was really like, hey, if I would have accepted from the get-go that this was an experience that was happening, accepted that there was conflict, accepted that there was something that needed to be talked about, accepted that there was going to need to be some care, that there was going to be some time, energy, and attention given to this. Like, if I just entered into acceptance from the get-go, then all of a sudden I'd bring more peace to that relationship because I have now gone from trying to escape it to being present with what it is. And so to me, acceptance was vital. And so many times I've been like, all right, this is what it is. This moment is happening right now. It's happening in a way that I don't have control over. I only get to be an active participant. So how do I turn on my love towards this situation and be present with it?
Yeah. It really has dramatically changed our fights because now we're going in flow together so we can get more regulated quickly instead of you trying to run upstream away from it. It's been very helpful. I will say this, I know we're getting close to wrapping up, but a lot of what I did was work on regulation outside of our marriage. That's the number one thing that has helped me. And I know you've done that too. You've done so much breathing work and ice baths and basically doing things that causes your fight or flight response to come up.
Cause discomfort.
And then actually learning how to bring the intensity of that experience in your body down to a calm state.
Yeah.
That is something that I think that's when I started to really see a difference, is when you were really digging into that. And that's something we haven't talked about at all, but that's probably one of the main contributors for both of us, is the outside work we did on regulating our nervous system that wasn't even about our relationship. And for me, there's so much, I spent a lot of time because it wasn't that our relationship is what dysregulated me. It's that I lived dysregulated.
Mm-hmm.
And I've lived dysregulated for my whole life. My nervous system patterns from my young age were very dysregulated. And then I kind of got some healing. And so I was more regulated. And then I went through trauma and then I was dysregulated again. So our nervous system is a pattern. It repeats over and over and over again. So we would be getting fights because my nervous system said it was time to get dysregulated more than because we needed a fight right then. And so I had to learn how to disrupt my nervous system pattern and retrain it. I had to retrain the thoughts that I thought, what I focused on, but I actually had to retrain my body. And it was experience after experience after experience of learning how to feel that calm, good feeling in my body, learning how to connect to myself, learning how to be present. And this is something, regulation has really, it's changed my health physically. It's changed our marriage. It's changed my ability to have hard conversations. It's probably the number one most transformative thing for me in the last few years. And so we actually have a regulation library that we've made of 70 guided regulation activities that you can do. They're typically like 7 to 15 minutes. So you can do them in the morning, in the afternoon, and when you're struggling, when you're not. I do regulation when I'm feeling good because it helps create this body rut, like this pathway where my body now it can get to feeling good really fast because I've done a lot of work to create feelings of feeling good in my body. And now when we're in a fight, I often can do something to get my body back into a state of feeling good. And the state that our nervous system is in affects our thoughts. So I'm not going to be able to have hopeful thoughts about our marriage when my nervous system is dysregulated. That's one way I know if I'm dysregulated. If I feel like there's no hope, we're never going to get this is so hard, I'm like, I'm dysregulated. When I'm regulated, I have naturally more positive thoughts. I see hope and goodness in the world because it's kind of, when I'm regulated, my confirmation bias is grabbing the things that feel good. When I'm dysregulated, my confirmation bias is grabbing all of the possible threats for the future. What I'm most excited about in January is we are doing a live experience healing course. It's virtual, so you can do it online anywhere. We've been doing a virtual school for 3 years. We know that it works. We've been doing virtual classes for 6 years. We've seen people's lives radically transformed, but it's I say it's an healing experience because we're actually going to have you experience with your body regulation. Learn how to heal your nervous system, but not logically just learn about the nervous system. We're going to give you that because the more you know, the more fun it is. But then we're going to have body experiences for you to begin to reset your nervous system, to begin to reset your life, because regulation will change the game for you. And it's changed the game for me and for hundreds of people that we've led. And so I love this because this is the first time we're doing a fully live experience that people can sign up for. So you guys can go to justinandabby.com. It's Reclaiming You, Heal Your Nervous System, and Build Emotional Resilience. I'm very, very excited. It's the first time we've ever done anything like it. And it's going to be, you're going to not only experience new safety and connection and regulation in your body, you're also going to create great relationships that will change your life.
I know that the peace that people are looking for, oftentimes they think is found in an externalized situation. And when it comes to this, regulation is where we discover a peace that surpasses our understanding. It's when we take care of our body and get connected into our body and learn how to manage that we can be in very discomforting experiences that we are very out of control of. Mm-hmm. And we can maintain our sense of peace and joy and our capacity. And so to me, I think that this is a very vital part of the healing experience that we have in life. And it's a very vital part of the empowerment portion of it, because I now can face things that I couldn't face before. And it's not because I have all this great new knowledge about, I don't know, whatever it is in the mental health space. It's about this knowledge about me, my own soul, my own well-being, and how to take care of me. And now I have the capacity to show up very powerfully in things I couldn't do before. So I think it's vital. I think it's a really big thing.
Yeah. And not only that, like we just had our students are sharing about what they learned in our school. And one of the most common things that we hear is, I've realized I can change the state of my nervous system,
Right.
no matter what's going on around me, which changes my thoughts, my feelings, my hope.
Yeah.
And that is true power, to find a way that you can actually feel good without having to change your outside world. That is unbelievable. And so it's very exciting.
All right, I'm out. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you haven't hit the bell button, hit the bell button. If you're not on YouTube, go to YouTube. Come participate with us in YouTube.
Yeah, and share this episode with people. We're trying to get as much free information to people as possible.
Yeah, rate, review, subscribe, and share. That's the way that people get change, is when this gets shared. So thank you so much for spending time with us, our Connected Life fam.
We did 2 episodes about our relationship.
Yes,
and we didn't get triggered.
Not at all. Hey. Whoa.
Did you stay regulated?
It works.
It works.
Hey, we're going away. You go away now. Bye.